The rays of the spring morning sun peeked in through the crack of the blinds. Penelope opened the blind, and in her lap, squinting her eyes, little Elishah saw the sunlight already on the first day of her life. Her eyes curiously explored that light. On the same day, King Malik declared to the people of Shell Bay that they had gotten a princess in their kingdom. They rejoiced upon hearing that a new future ruler had been born, and great parties were organized. Her name had been announced to Queen Penelope's mother, Katerina, even before the child's birth, and the Creator gave this little one the gift of song as a present. Elishah did not yet know what it could be used for and to what adventures life would take her.
Little Elishah lived her first couple of years more among the family. The castle was being repaired, and then a little brother was born to her exactly on the day that Katerin had predicted. The boy got the name Edvin. As a couple-year-old, Elishah was taken to visit and get to know a girl in the kingdom, Sabrina, and they became best friends. Elishah often invited Sabrina even for a meal to the castle, and the parents didn't say anything to that but treated the child almost like their own. Sabrina was from an underprivileged family where there wasn't always enough food available, and the family had certain difficulties otherwise as well. The beginning of Elishah's life was easygoing, and she attended a normal school with the other children. However, little by little, Elishah noticed that some familiar and important thing had changed. Her best friend Sabrina was no longer in such a nice mood, but called her names and lied. She often didn't want to play with Elishah anymore, but Elishah noticed Sabrina spending time with the new girl at school. This abandonment already made a large crack in Elishah's little heart, but Sabrina had also revealed Elishah's secret to the new girl. She told that Elishah had the gift of song. From this, the other girls at school also heard, and out of jealousy, they started to mock Elishah. She hardly sang anymore, and a new feeling had taken her over almost completely, and it was anxiety and fear. Thus, the power of the song remained hidden even before Elishah had even understood its meaning of what it could be used for. Elishah closed up like a clam into her shell, and bad thoughts began to control Elishah's little mind. Those thoughts said that she is defective and miserable, and that she only causes trouble. So Elishah started to avoid certain situations and double-check from her parents whether she did things wrong at whatever times. The stomach was often upset, and in the mornings she couldn't eat much but going to school. At some point, certain clothes also felt disgustingly tight and rough, and the ponytail tightened the scalp. Elishah didn't always dare to go without an escort to the schoolyard, and at school she was often anxious. Normal things had turned upside down, and Elishah didn't understand why. Elishah was already broken from the bullying until her dear grandma Katerina passed away from an illness. Elishah broke down completely. Elishah had reached her teenage years and was very weak and sorrowfully walked past a certain shop. In its display window were beautiful-looking clothes that lured her in through the door. At the back of the shop sat a small woman hunched over, and she said with a small voice, "What is wrong with you, child?" Elishah got a little startled and told that she was very sad. The woman said she was a healer who could fix the situation. Elishah listened downcast, but curious if the woman could truly help her in her sorrow and anxiety. The woman assured that she had this ability and invited Elishah to her home to a small cottage where she would heal her. Elishah went to the cottage, and in the hallway there was a hatch where one had to put money. She was also otherwise required to wear white clothes without jewelry and zippers, and she had to bring 2 flowers with her. She went into the apartment where the healer woman was waiting for her. Elishah had to lie down, and the woman waved her hands above Elishah and babbled some weird secret language. Then she suddenly left the spot, and the trickling of water could be heard. Finally, the woman returned, and when Elishah looked the woman in the eyes, she suddenly had eyes like Grandma Katerina's. Elishah got startled and ran away from the cottage. Elishah was completely confused and anxious. She no longer knew what is true and what is not. So much for the inner peace that the woman had promised.
Elishah numbed her feelings with alcohol. On her 19th birthday, Elishah met Hubert, who became interested in her. They started dating, and once while Elishah was in the ride of Hubert's car, he tried to make an impression by speeding in a curve, but the car slid off the icy surface of the road into a snowbank, almost hitting a light pole, whereby Elishah could have gotten hurt. Luckily, there wasn't that much speed after all, and there was no hit. The sheriff came to the scene right away to give a fine. The car was towed out of the ditch, and Elishah survived with a fright. Elishah herself made a stupid mistake in wanting to continue the relationship even after that, because Hubert would have wanted Elishah to stay over at his place for the night, but was not ready for a relationship, since he only wanted to be a friend, and this became clear only when Elishah found the man at another woman's birthday party. Elishah was more annoyed than sad. What an idiot that man was!
A little time passed, and Elishah partied a lot with her friends. Elishah wanted to find that spouse at last and arrived at a certain party to look for that dream prince of hers. Namely, she didn't accept any of the candidates proposed by her parents. At the party, a man who was quite tipsy danced with her there. He danced like possessed by evil around Elishah, but Elishah wanted attention even though he didn't quite seem like a prince. The man managed to sweet-talk something to Elishah and gave his number. The next day, Elishah stared at the number on her phone and decided to call the man. What could go wrong here? The man took her on a romantic date, and Elishah thought she had truly fallen for him. The reality about the man, however, was revealed soon. He was truly possessed by evil, and he cast a wicked spell on Elishah, namely, the demon of shame, which took over Elishah, and Elishah became completely powerless. The man ordered Elishah to do heavy labor for him in woodwork, and Elishah couldn't say anything back because the demon had paralyzed her into consenting to his will. Elishah saw herself speeding away in a car, but it was only wishful thinking, and she awoke to find herself completely frozen in place. Twistedly, that demon made Elishah think that she must please and earn better treatment, as well as the fear that she would be left completely alone. She herself, after all, was to blame for the other's behavior. This is just how things were supposed to go now, and wicked thoughts whispered in Elishah's mind. What would anyone say when they heard how Elishah had been tricked? Elishah struggled for a long time in her so-called cage, and soon the door to that cage opened when a certain Queen Ninette from a far-off land was searching for singing candidates. She remembered hearing Elishah singing when she was little and was now searching for this lost princess. Some did know Elishah's whereabouts, but Elishah didn't tell the true
State of things to them. Now, however, Queen Ninette also caught a hint of Elishah's whereabouts and found the forest cottage where Elishah was staying with the man possessed by evil. Ninette cleverly got Elishah out of the cottage, telling her this was an emergency, and took her to her distant castle for auditions. Elishah's head was completely spinning, and even more so when she heard the praises and that she would get to be Ninette's student. Elishah was happy but terrified about what would happen then with the man in the forest cottage. Elishah, however, loved singing more than that mean man, so the decision was clear. She sort of yanked herself free from that chain, meaning the demon of shame, and began pursuing her dream. In Queen Ninette's school, there was a nice-seeming group of other musical people, singers and players.
They became a tight-knit bunch, and soon Elishah found herself hanging out more with a certain person. Elishah had once again hastily ended up in a relationship. However, she had a believing friend from whom Elishah learned to pray, and soon the relationship too was left aside to make way for her life of faith. Elishah graduated as a skilled singer, but those nasty accusations and the demon of shame had come back, bringing along depression for Elishah as well. That demon also caused nasty convulsions in Elishah's body, and once she collapsed onto the floor powerless, crying. The support of Ninette and all the new friends had carried her even during difficult times. But now Elishah felt she was almost alone. She had returned back to her parents' castle, and her life was surviving the demons. Elishah just didn't feel like she was ever winning those battles. However, she sometimes visited the local congregation, and a new Bible circle was started there. It was quite nice there, and Elishah felt she had again found a community to belong to. Elishah noticed sitting at the table also a kind-looking Toivo, who spoke openly about his faith. At first they didn't talk, but Elishah gathered her courage and dared to call him. Elishah also sang to Toivo. Toivo took Elishah out to eat, and from there their love story began.
Near Elishah's castle lived also evil Marina, who would have liked to use Elishah's gift of song for her own purposes. She was namely a witch, and she desperately needed a new weapon as her powers faded from old age. She tried to separate Toivo and Elishah from each other by all sorts of means and control Elishah with her spells so she could get Elishah to sing to her, but she didn't succeed. The power of prayer blocked all the witch's strikes. Toivo and Elishah were inseparable. Elishah and Toivo adventured together a lot in different places, and all sorts of mishaps and challenges happened to them. Once, Elishah received a letter where she was praised to the skies as a kind and skilled princess, and she was invited to a princess course where she would get more teaching and singing and learn leadership skills. Elishah was overjoyed. Toivo tried to hold back a little since they didn't know the sender of the letter or hadn't heard anything about them. They decided together, however, to go visit that Blatsiko manor where the training was said to be.
Elishah and Toivo traveled a long distance by car and arrived at the destination noticing they were completely in the middle of nowhere. Both looked at the map in wonder. Is this where it is supposed to be? They wondered. They stepped out of the car and saw before them a dilapidated and flimsy house. This is supposed to be the manor? Toivo blurted out. This looks completely deserted, Elishah said. At least they thought it was deserted, until upon going inside, they noticed the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. There was a woman there who, noticing them, asked if they wanted coffee, even though they didn't know the woman. They declined and asked who she is. The woman started telling her life story. She seemed sick but cheerful. Suddenly, from elsewhere came also another smell, and it was not pleasant, but old liquor and a combination of some other weird smell. As Toivo searched for where the smell is coming from, he started feeling like they were being watched. He noticed after examining the living room for a moment that there was a small camera there from which a red light shone. Toivo got startled and told Elishah that now they must leave. Just as they were getting out, Elishah felt someone being behind her and someone grabbing her hand. As if in the blink of an eye, a dark figure snatched Elishah back inside, and Toivo was left outside. Toivo noticed the matter right away and yelled, "Let her go!" The creature didn't listen, and as Toivo ran to the door, the creature already managed to close the door. Toivo ran to the window, but the windows closed as if by themselves. The figure took Elishah into a room and tied her to a chair. Elishah was terrified. The figure was revealed to be a highly dangerous black angel. He used the sick woman as his bait so that Elishah would stay in the house. He took out 2 guns with which he threatened Elishah. The black angel put Latin music playing and danced crazily. Suddenly, he blasted lamps down to scare Elishah and also Toivo, who heard the shots outside and thought that the shots were aimed at Elishah. Toivo almost went into a panic. Elishah prayed in her mind for help and felt a wondrous courage coming into her from somewhere, and she began to sing her prayer. Soon, she saw how some golden light began shining in the living room. It shined so brightly that Elishah's eyes stung. The light turned into a golden angel figure which stood behind the black angel and lowered his weapons to the ground. The black angel couldn't do anything, but he went to the ground and wailed as if twitching from pain. Toivo saw from the window what happened, and an emergency code suddenly appeared on his phone, from which Toivo remembered what it was. It would alert the 12 disciples, meaning the Whitehearts. Toivo pressed the button right away, and soon helicopters and tanks came and surrounded the house. Whiteheart Jason smashed the door, and he and Toivo ran inside. Jason grabbed the black angel with a tight grip and walked him outside and tossed him into the car. Toivo, for his part, ran like lightning to Elishah and released her from her bindings. Toivo and Elishah cried and hugged each other. All sorts of strange things started happening in the world. The Black Angels attacked northern Finland, pushing at the same time a refugee stream of Jews away from the clutches of the Black Angels. Elishah and Toivo promised to help the Jews flee to their homeland. While going to the ship by trucks, fighter jets broke the sound barrier, and a massive 30-meter fire angel suddenly stood next to them and exploded the fighter jets into fireballs. At the same time, the Whitehearts fought against the Black Angels in the villages and cities to secure a safe journey to the cargo ship. Toivo and Elishah comforted and prayed for the Jews and asked if they wanted to give their lives to Jesus. An old woman got her sight back in the truck. Elishah and Toivo hugged Hadassah's family, who were the most afraid as the bullets banged and explosions echoed outside. They told them, "Do not be afraid." The trucks arrived at the port. The ship set off and managed to travel some distance when a storm started to rise. The ship swayed on the open sea. Black clouds covered the sky and formed into screaming, ugly faces. The people looked in distress on the ship's deck at what would happen and saw how black helicopters came from the clouds and elsewhere. Ships also came from the sea and shot at the vessel. The people screamed in distress. "What do we do now?" Toivo yelled, "Be silent, for God fights on your behalf." Toivo took his staff and raised it towards the sky and prayed. Whirlpools appeared in the water, and they sucked the warships into the depths. Massive lightning bolts hit the clouds, and the faces from the clouds disappeared, exploding. Toivo pointed the staff towards the helicopters, and lightning struck them in half. Toivo took his staff and slammed it firmly against the ship's deck, and right then the earth began to shake, and large earthquakes came that sucked the temples of the Black Angels into the earth. At the same time, brightness filled the vessel, and they found themselves in the port of Haifa. The Black Angels had built one temple in the shape of a black pearl, where the Antichrist declared himself to be God through a microphone to the microchipped people. Toivo and Elishah went to preach on the streets of Jerusalem. The Antichrist's minion went to report to the Antichrist that Toivo and Elishah are stirring up people on the streets. The Antichrist, laughing, howled his terrible dark laugh and yelled, "I got them." Black Humvees and black vans surrounded Toivo and Elishah, and black angels began to come out of the vans. They started loading their automatic weapons. From Toivo and Elishah's mouths came flames of fire, which scorched the black angels to ashes. Inside the Black Pearl, the Antichrist pressed a button, and black drones flew towards Elishah and Toivo, and the rapid-fire weapons on them fired towards Elishah. Toivo threw himself in front of Elishah, and the bullets pierced them. Elishah was alive for a moment longer, and blood came from her mouth. She saw Toivo dead and said to him, "My love." And then Elishah too closed her eyes. The whole world followed the situation via cameras. People celebrated their death and gave Christmas presents to each other. After 3 days, the Holy Spirit descended upon Toivo and Elishah, and they came back to life. In his temple, the Antichrist yelled in a rage, "Arg! Team how to?" Toivo hugged Elishah, and perfect love took over them. The heavens opened, and Jesus said, "Come here." Brightness filled the surroundings. An earthquake happened, which split the city streets. The Mount of Olives split in half, and the earth creaked at its joints. Toivo and Elishah ascended into the brightness of heaven